Well, you know it's June when it's time for Kyle Neubeck to start hitting some home runs for the Philadelphia Phillies. The NBA draft is upon us, and the NBA Finals are in progress, and in this case have finally come to an end as the Celtics have won the NBA championship.
I was going to say, did I hallucinate that last night?
It stinks. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Just like that series stuck.
Alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck, I'm Devon
Kyle, you
Givens.
have to like playoffs. You have to like
You
them.
have to like them. Brianna's here with us.
A lot
as
of people
well.
yelling at me today, man.
All of you in the chat. And we are going to talk about, as we previewed yesterday, discussing the guards to lead things off in our draft discussion. Today, we're going to get into the wing conversation and those players from the guards and the forwards that have that pretty good size, that length that you want to have as far as a player on the floor, on the perimeter, that can do a lot of different things. We're going to discuss them. Maybe some wings that we talked about yesterday, the honey barbecue flavor, or what was the one that
I love lemon pepper.
Yeah, that's actually.
But
I'm not a big fan of lemon pepper.
I'm a traditional Buffalo guy. Normally just like that. A hot wing is my favorite.
I like the hot honey kind of.
Hot honey is also very good.
It's really good.
You don't like lemon pepper?
I don't.
Bad taste.
I tried it, but it was
maybe
like
you haven't
I
had
gotta
good one.
keep trying
I don't know where you've had them at.
and I just didn't
I
like
trust
it.
you.
But what was the one that checked that? What was the one that checked? We
Oh,
tried
the
hot one.
Ludicrous.
Ludicrous.
Oh, that's right.
That's
yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Nobody goes like, that is what I enjoy eating.
I have a high tolerance for spice. Yeah. That's not one where I'm going to sit down.
We just did that because we're stubborn.
Exactly.
Right, fair. All right, so if we're talking, and we're going to get into some other, since the series is over, the NBA Finals, we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's also the opportunity now, as the guys have talked about on this show, just to let everybody know and update you, the new rule in the NBA when the season ends, that teams with free agents, which every team has free agents, they are allowed to negotiate and talk contractual things with their players, with their representatives, of signing them now and not waiting until June 30th. So we have some stuff to talk about there, how that might impact and affect the Philadelphia 76ers going forward. Maybe they're talking to some of their players as well, but we'll get to that. Speaking of ludicrous, as we talk about wings, Derek, and we start things off here.
Curious where you're pivoting to on this one.
How would you describe this wing class around 16 and beyond for the players that we're about to discuss for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Derek, do you have a burner account in here by the name of Italian Stallion?
No, I don't believe so, no.
Italian Stallion saying you're too humble to admit you're the only person who wanted the Sixers to
I
take
did,
SGA.
actually. I remember I had him like 8th on my big board.
On him.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was like...
I took some grief for that, too. A lot of people didn't want another point guard who had questionable shot selection. Anyway, we're not going back to our 2018.
Derek, the Italian
draft.
Stallion.
Well, somebody want to go back to 2018 and revisit that draft.
You got to remember your victories, my man. You got to remember your victories. No, in terms of this class, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of players who have pretty debilitating weaknesses, a lot of players who, if you squint, you might be able to buy into, but you, like we said yesterday, you might have to really squint because they all are pretty flawed.
I need my shady rays over here.
If you are a 6'8" wing in today's NBA and you are not a flawed prospect, you are a top 10 pick because everybody wants those. Everybody we'll be talking about here either can't shoot, or their questionable decision-making, or their defense isn't there, or maybe their physical tools aren't quite there. There's going to be a huge red flag on every of the 4 or 5 prospects we talk about. I don't think this is a particularly great wing class, at least in terms of depth, but that's who we have to talk about.
Well, so since we're going to start throw some names out similar to what we did yesterday, and I'm just going to throw the names at the guys and see what they think. To start off, Kyle, I'll throw one to you because we just had a great one introduction there in the comments from Zach saying Tristan da Silva
stinks
of Colorado is something of a Buffalo wing himself. So as we play off of that, Tristan da Silva, senior from the Colorado Buffaloes, and he's one that has talked about being drafted somewhere in that 20 range there for this upcoming NBA draft. What are your thoughts on him as we begin this conversation?
Okay, I'll try to start on the positive side before I'm not going to go nuclear, but I would say I'm not as high on him as a lot of people seem to be. Good spot up guy,
yes.
Right? 40+% shooter, someone that I don't think he's a movement shooter, but I think he can be like a relocation, come off a screen. He's good at getting his base set, squaring his shoulders.
He's
all
not going
that.
to come sprinting off of a screen at 30 miles an hour like JJ Redick,
Yes.
but he will reposition himself to get
Or
over.
if you like, so
like a Danny Green cut.
If you did like a pick and pop with him,
Right.
I think that'll work. I think he could be a weapon in that way. I think he's got good feel as a cutter. I think one of the things I saw when if you use him in like a give and go type situation with Joel, like if he's getting an entry pass from Da Silva, I think Da Silva has good feel of if his defender cheats, he could probably time those well and get some easy buckets off of just some Joel dump off passes there. So I like that in conjunction with the spot up shooting, because that puts you in a good spot on both ends of it, right? Like if the guy sags off or tries to double, I'm catching and I'm shooting. Or if they try to double, you can also go by them, go backdoor and try to get a basket. So that part I like. I don't like him as an on-ball or like a ball handling passer, live dribble passer. I do think he's a good connective guy.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some stuff out of – now he won't play this role for the Sixers. I think he was used in the middle of the zone a decent amount, and I thought he was a good kind of quarterback in the middle of the floor. I think he's a good big-to-big passer in the front court. So I think if you're going to have him in the dunker spot from time to time, or you need to do some just little, give and go type stuff with Joel Embiid, I think he's going to be useful in that way. As it pertains to the Sixers, one of my big concerns is that I don't think he's even really a wing. I think he might be a true 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think he's as fluid of an athlete as he needs to be in order to defend the quicker guys. And so I think he's going to run into problems defending people in space. If that's the case, there's value in, okay, if you're playing a big, maybe not super downhill athletic wing, I think he can defend his position, and there's value in that. But in a system where Joel Embiid is going to play a lot of drop and everybody else, I would prioritize being switch defenders. I don't think he's helping you out with that. So that is a little bit concerning for me. I don't love him as a rebounder as a 4 either. Like his numbers are okay, but I think he's liable to get pushed around a little bit. I don't like calling guys soft, but I think if you're the type of person who wants to label players like that, I think as a rebounder, as a defensive player from time to time, and as a finisher as well, I think when he tries to take people off the dribble on anything more than like a straight line drive, he can get pushed off his spot and have some difficulties. He had a lot of his offense last year and throughout his career created for him. So he's not somebody that I think can be a secondary creator. If you're simply looking for this guy can defend his position and make spot up shots and occasionally make some good connective passes, I think he's like a fairly safe bet.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he flames out entirely, because he does a few things well enough to be at the NBA level. I just think the upside is relatively limited, and I think that might will end up being one of my favorite wings for this spot, but I don't love him by any stretch.
There are 2 guys that I sort of kind of like among this group. One is a player with the most that I think has the most upside, and one is a player that I think has the least upside, and that's who we're talking about here. A lot of the reasons that you talked about maybe not liking him as much are what I kind of like. First of all, I would be stunned if he ever became more than like a 4th option on offense.
Yeah.
That's just like, he's not going to come into the NBA and create a lot of offense. Maybe secondary stuff, maybe attacking closeout, decent passes, the dump off passes, the bigs, but you're not going to put him at the top of the key and be like, here's a ball screen, go create some offense out of it. He's not going to score a lot out of those sets. He's a spot up shooter. He's a good decision maker, an attack closeouts, a cutoff ball, but I think he has a pretty high likelihood of doing all of those at an average or above average level.
Yes.
And you can probably, if you're looking at a guy who you want to slot in pretty early in his career, which presumably if the Sixers actually keep this pick, they want a tall guy with at least a little bit of positional versatility. I think you're right. Defensively, he's not like a super versatile defender. He's going to be mostly a 4, occasionally switching on to a 3, and you sort of just live with the mismatch that he would have against him. But I think he's going to be competent defensively, in part because I think he has pretty good hands. Certainly, I think the will and the effort is there.
Yes.
I think the decision-making is there. He's just limited physically. But if you're telling me that you're pretty confident, and he shot like 42% on spot-up jumpers, if you're telling me you're pretty confident in that translating, the decision-making on offense translating to, catch the ball or move the ball, what's a phrase?
0.5.
Yeah,
decision.
0.5. But I was also thinking of strong and wrong. I think he's going to be strong and right a lot, and I think that's good for a role player. I think he slots into, like a lot of these players I think we will draft and say, well, if they develop this or if they develop that, but if they don't develop that, they're going to be a really bad role player.
They might just be, out of the league.
They're either going to be a primary or a
bench.
secondary creator, or they're going to be borderline unplayable on a good team. Da Silva, I think, is a pretty good chance to be a role player. Like I said, I'd be stunned if he ever ends up being like a top 3 option on a team. But I think there's a pretty good chance he will be a useful and productive player and be able to slot into a role. And because of that, I'm kind of in. Not super in. I wouldn't be, doing backflips, in part because I'm too old and can't do backflips, but also in part because he's not a backflip-worthy player. But I think he could be a solid piece.
Just a solid player, and one that we talk about so much, and we speak about it a lot, but we never really have dove into the shooting aspect of what's not on this basketball team. As far as the offseason projections, looking at different players coming in, we always talk about it being an attribute that everybody has to have. This guy can shoot the basketball. So if we are looking at somebody at that size, and I saw somebody mention Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson was a top 10 pick, if I remember correctly.
And the thought was at the time he was overdrafted. I think he was projected deeper in the first, and that was viewed as a pretty big gamble by the Suns.
Because Kobe White was doing his Bulls press conference, and they told him he was drafted while doing so, and he was so excited because he went earlier than most people expected. But if you're looking to fill out again, hopefully you can have somebody that can come in, play some sort of role, and there's that. We saw where Nick Batum at his size can do so many of those different things that you guys talked about. Now, defensively, he has some work to do, as Kyle mentioned, as the guys talked about. But with that size, being also an upperclassman who has played basketball for a while at a competitive level at collegiate basketball, and maybe that stuff will translate to the pros for him. So, as the guy said, don't love him, like him. It will be a solid selection if we're sitting there on June 26th and we're just sitting there saying, you know what? All right, not a bad pick. You can see where he fits into what they do, and especially with that shooting. Will the shooting keep him on the floor or get him on the floor? And will he do enough good things defensively with his size to maintain the ability to stay on the floor with some other good defenders possibly around him, mostly Joel Embiid, of course, on the back end. But I like him, don't love him. And there are a lot of people here in the chat that I just looked at that were talking about him and saying he's the best option for the 76ers at number 16.
So I think there's going to be 2 segments of fan. If the Sixers drafted him, there would be 2 reactions. One, they would see him try to create an ISO once, be like, he can't do this. What's he doing in the NBA?
Yep.
Then the other that will see him throw one entry pass, lose their mind, and be like, the only one we've ever had do this is Batum. Keep him on the Sixers as long as you can.
Mm-hmm. And on that front, Devon, a.k.a. Schoolboy Beats, had a super chat for us that said, you don't love Tristan, but you love Batum. Confusing. Well, we like Batum a lot for what he is. He's also, you live with, or you come to terms with, okay, this is a vet role player, right? I have these bankable skills that I want. And I think if Tristan da Silva was 19 and did all these things, and you were talking yourself into, oh, there's still an upside case there. Like, I've seen flashes of this, I've seen flashes of that, then you would be more excited about it. It's like, oh, he can grow into, more of this. Like Nick Batum at his peak was I think 5-6 assists per game guy, somebody who could take people off the bounce and do things like that. And he came into the league when he was only 19 or 20 years old. Da Silva is an old prospect. He's already 23, I believe. I don't remember when.
It's not always a knock, though.
No, I mean, it's good in terms of the play right away. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying if you're using a top 20 pick and the idea is we need to replenish the young talent, need some form of upside, what you see is what you get, I think. I don't think there's a lot of he's going to outshoot where he's at right now, which is fine. But if you want to chase upside in any way, I just don't think he's the guy. But I don't know that any of these wings are.
I agree with upside-wise.
Yeah, I don't think any of these wings are really, other than there's a guy that Derek really likes, who I think is an upside case. But most of these guys are, you just hope for 1 or 2 skills, and the rest is going to be.
Is the shooting good enough?
If he shoots 40+% and he's a passable defender.
At league average around 38.
Yeah, as long as he's a good enough defender and he is at or above that, high 30s, then yeah, I think he'll absolutely be worth the pick. It's
Mm-hmm.
just how that stacks up to any other option there. Because we went through the guards yesterday. Like some of these guards that we're talking about at 16 are guys that were considered at one point, top five guys in the class, or, maybe they can be like a point guard in the future, whatever, for other teams. And we certainly poo-pooed some of those guys, but it just gets into a conversation of, you have this at the draft every year. Do you take the safe bet? Do you take the guy that you probably not know, but feel pretty strongly, I think this guy will be an NBA role player and he can help me? Or do you try to chase some more upside down the road with a little more risk alongside it? It's always an interesting philosophy. I tend to think, to your point, Devon, they probably would prefer maybe not 23-year-olds, but certainly guys who've been in college a couple years. You sort of know who they are, and there's not as much guesswork with them coming into the league.
Yeah, and just from the personal experience, of course, right? Knowing that while sitting back watching it, we're doing the work in the business, but then also sitting back as a family member is older, and they're picking apart everything about what he does coming out of Villanova, different because of the championships and what they did on that at that level as a team, and Jay Wright and all that stuff, and everybody else around each other. You just older players, of course, are going to get picked apart for everything that they do.
Yes.
Why are you still in school when these younger guys are projected to be drafted higher than you? And what are you doing? What are you missing? And why are you not here now?
And I will tell you, even like scouting myself, when I look at guys who are like, oh, this guy had a big breakthrough as a shooter, and it's like 39-40% or whatever it is on, even if it's good volume, but it's their senior year, I'm like, do I really buy that?
Yep.
Is this just, based on the sample size? Is it a 1-year thing? Am I really going to trust this guy? Like, what are the free throw numbers? And
Similar to what we talked about with Carter yesterday with the shooting wise.
Right. So you give him the side eye when it could just be, hey, this guy worked and got better and will continue to get better. Like, you don't know. But that's the hard part of scouting.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Well, we'll get to another one on the other side. But of course, when you get some information, sometimes, your sources send some things to you. They call your phone, maybe,
when you need to have a phone, have service that's always reliable, but also get it at a price where you're not getting ripped off. There's no catch. You don't need to go anywhere else except with our friends at Mint Mobile. I heard that for a limited time, all Mint Mobile wireless plans are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. And I thought, what's the catch? But they talked to us. We had a nice little conference call with our people at Mint Mobile. Unfortunately, no Ryan Reynolds. But we talked to them and they said there isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they sell wireless service online. They do not have retail stores or salespeople. Instead, they deliver premium phone plans directly to you so you can say goodbye to overpriced wireless plans, say hello to jaw-dropping monthly bills in a good way. So Mint Mobile's here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your phone. You can go out and get a new one, whatever you want to do. They can get you set up, whether it's an eSIM, a normal physical SIM card, very painless setup process. So you can ditch the overpriced wireless with Mint. And I've been using it now for, I think it's been a couple weeks that I've been using Mint. And in a lot of spots, I've had even better coverage than I did on my previous plan, on my previous network. Internet speeds are good because, we're always on the go. I'm getting news. I'm hearing different things. I got to use my phone quite a bit. I am a power user, although not quite at the level of some of the big NBA news breakers. And Mint Mobile service has been outstanding for me while being at an outstanding monthly price. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Sixers, mintmobile.com/Sixers. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Sixers. Disclaimer, there's a $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Look at him nailing that disclaimer.
I'm trying my best.
Proud of you. We also want to make sure we tell you about Rite Aid, specifically their pharmacy services. With a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescription, schedule a vaccine, get personalized care recommendations, sign up for prescription notifications. All you need to get started is a prescription at Rite Aid. Get started at riteaid.com/mypharmacy. Stop stressing about your prescriptions. Let Rite Aid refill them automatically. Enroll in automated courtesy refills. It's free, easy, and most prescriptions qualify. Talk with your Rite Aid pharmacist or sign up through your My Pharmacy account at riteaid.com. If you need to make any updates to your prescriptions, you can use the Rite Aid mobile app to manage them. With the Rite Aid mobile app, you can transfer or refill your prescriptions, set up medication reminders, enroll in prescription notifications, download the app from the Apple App Store or from Google Play. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacists are ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medicines, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
All right. Before we move on to the next name, Kyle, Devon follows up after Super Chat and says, but isn't Jaime Jaquez an older rookie as well who went to the Miami Heat? I believe it was right around that 10 range for Jaime Jaquez. Some people were surprised that he did go in that spot, but he certainly played well for the Miami Heat in year one.
Listen, I'm not fundamentally opposed to older rookies. I'm just, all I'm doing here is laying out the case for you of like, there is value in getting more of a known quantity or what you think is a known quantity.
Yep.
There's also value from time to time of taking the risk, saying, because look, some of these 19-year-olds, including one that we'll talk about, who I think Derek is bullish on because of a bad situation that he was in, some of their skill sets are masked, and you have to go further back to, high school, Team USA, different events that they've been in to get a real feel for who they are, and you end up getting way better, or you outshoot the value of that slot because you were willing to take more of a gamble. So it's just, I'm not saying there's one way to win the draft or to make the best draft pick. At the top of the draft, I'd say generally you want to take the youngest, most productive guys. But at 16, you can make the case either way. It's just a matter of how much risk you're willing to accept and what your organizational priorities are. To me, I think the Sixers should be able to, or should be looking to take a little bit of risk because, they've been stuck here. But
yeah, we can talk about their philosophy. The real truth is, if they want to win now player, they're going to probably trading the pick. Yeah.
It's kind of a moot point.
He follows up. He's paying for it too. Super Chat. Devon jumping in. Figured the older players like Jaquez were ideal for win now teams. But I don't know. I just want Morey thinking hard about keeping it simple and safe. Daryl, LOL. That's it.
And there's, nothing wrong with that.
Different philosophies all around. Let's get to the next player. We are going to go to a younger player with a lot of questions, maybe, because a lot of people don't know much about him. We go to, in this particular name here, go to the G League Ignite. And we go with Ron Holland, the 18-year-old, 6'7" forward that we're going to throw at Derek Bodner right now.
Yeah, that's a guy that Kyle's been referencing that I am higher on than I think everybody else. Went to G League Ignite, was pretty much your top option for most of the year, was initiating a lot, and I think real early on in the season, he looked completely overmatched. Like, some of the turnovers were bad. It looked like he was getting sped up, trying to do too much, driving too deep in the defense. And the shooting is, it's bad. It's bad right now. Now, part of that, I think, is they play at the NBA line. They play farther back than college players do, so I think that transition can be tough. You usually see players go from college to the NBA and struggle, so I think distance is part of that. I think part of it is the fact that he is self-creating more than he probably ever will in his life and more than he did in high school. I don't think he's a lead guard. I think he's a 3 or a 4 at his peak. If he works out, I think he's still like a third option kind of creator. But I think that kind of brought up a lot of his weaknesses and masked a lot of his strengths. And I do think, like, if you start off from a defensive standpoint, I think he is the best defender in this group by a pretty wide margin.
I really think that's easy too.
I think his combination, he's just under 6'6" without shoes, 6'11" wingspan, 8'8" reach. His measurables are great. His intensity is great. He moves his feet well defensively. I think he's got the tools to be an impact defender. both in terms of, man-to-man on the perimeter and also being a switchable defender as well. And I think when you start talking about Holland, that is where it starts. So then it comes down to, all right, well, if you get him away from the creation that he was doing a lot in the G League, get him into like an off-ball role, which is going to have to involve shooting. And right now he's not there yet. 24% on catch and shoot shots last year, 27.4% off the dribble. That's not nearly good enough. I don't think the form is a complete disaster, but I also think there's a lot of like pre-shot footwork that needs to improve. His balance seems like is off. Things that I think he can learn. I don't think it's a complete lost cause, but there is a lot of progress that needs to be made. But if he can do that, and he's playing like I said, a spot up role, an attack closeouts role, an occasional creation role, an occasional slashing role, I think he has a chance to do that. I think he's got the leaping ability to be, like I said, a cutter. I think he's willing to take and absorb contact. Like I said, the defensive tools are best among this group. And I even think he has some passing upside, just not as a primary guy like he was there. I think he was in a bad spot with the Ignite. I think the tools are there. And if there's any, like I said, I'm either going for the safe pick in Da Silva, or I'm going with the high upside guy in Holland.
Swing for the fences.
One of the two, and he is my upside guy.
So I want to ask you this, Derek, while we're on the topic of the shot, because I want to see if I'm imagining this from what I watched. It felt like he was better and more comfortable as a pull-up guy than a catch and shoot guy.
But he wasn't good either.
He's not good at either, but the mechanics and the whole shooting process looked more natural.
He was very hesitant as a catch and shoot guy.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is that he was creating so much of their offense, but part of it's just, he's just not confident in that shot. And I do think you're probably right in terms of like using one or two dribbles didn't necessarily improve the effectiveness, but it seemed like it maybe put him into a more of a comfort zone is the way I would phrase it.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't something I imagined. It just kind of jumped out at me a little bit. So to Derek's point, the things that you like about him, I think he's a physical player who wants to use those tools, all those athletic tools, because there are a lot of guys that like plenty of guys throughout NBA history had great wingspan, great athletic tools, and
had no
you
interest
still have
in
to
defending.
like beg them to defend. I don't think there's that. I don't think you're going to get a lot of those, head in the clouds, I'm lost off ball moments. I think if anything, he probably skews toward not quite as far, but into that like Thibault camp of over aggression. He's going to take some silly fouls. I'll run through people, and he's going to over pursue. But I would rather deal with that problem and work on the process of reining him in and saying, hey, like not every play needs to be a steal, a block, a jump into a passing lane, or trying to rip a guy with his handle. But I think the fact that he takes defense as personally as he does is a really good sign. And we were talking about it with the guards yesterday. That also gives him a pretty immediate path to playing. If he wants to and will defend right away, that would be excellent. So that's good. He's a good transition player.
Great transition player.
So that's how he made a lot of his meals in on the G League Ignite. Unfortunately, I just do not believe in him at all as a half-court player. Don't believe in the shot. Shot like, what was it, 24% on catch and shoot shots, which is just absolutely disgusting. The mechanics we talked about. I think the problem with the lack of a jumper is I don't really love him as an on-ball guy. You have to limit him to a lot of just like catch, go. And as I was talking about with Collier, who's a guy I do like at US as a guard, he runs into those problems that Collier does or did at USC where he doesn't want to take the shots or the release is too slow to take the shot. And then you just dribble into traffic and there's nowhere to go. And I think the difference between him and Collier is Collier is at least like he's below average. Holland is a straight up bad shooter. And he's one that he'll be on the scouting report like do not guard. And that could turn into you're just letting that guy stand in the corner and bomb away, and they could junk up your offense in a big way. To the point I was making earlier, though, that Devon was talking about the pro-ready guys versus – I do think if you want to make the upside case for him, to Derek's point, I think that Ignite team, that situation was a fucking disaster for him. Asking him to be like a 28% usage guy is just complete bananas. It was something he'd never done. And if you go back to, obviously played at a high level playing for Team USA, he's a really good high school player, has a lot of good priors. So if you believe in those priors, if you say, okay, he was one of the best players in his class, he chose this path, and looks like it just flamed out and didn't work for him at all, and now there are all these questions about him that didn't necessarily exist before, you would say, okay, we're at pick 16. We're a team that's not expecting to be, a lottery team or even like a top 20 pick team year in and year out. Why not just swing for the fences? And so that part I get. These are the types of players I used to say, you just got to learn how to shoot. And I've watched so many of them, they just never get there. Like, even if they get there, it's a low volume, 34, 35%. And once you get to the playoffs, I just don't think they'll guard him. So I don't believe in him.
Absolutely a chance that happens.
Look, I hope he gets there because I love guys who buy in like he does defensively. I want him to make it. I just don't know if I see it.
If he had a projectable jump shot with confidence, he would be a top 5 to 7
Yes.
pick. And really, if you're trying to carve out a role for him, the only thing he has to improve on is a set shot. Obviously, everything needs a little bit of growth and development, but in terms of a significant tweak, the only thing that really needs to improve dramatically is a jump shot. And I think he's, a lot of guys you say like, all right, well, you'll just scale back his offense. Well, a lot of guys, A, don't want to scale back their offense, and B, like you mentioned, aren't going to buy in defensively to where that's realistically going to be an impact player on a scaled back third or fourth option. I think he will. So it's legitimately, if you can just make him into a good spot up shooter, then you have a really good role player for a long time, and probably a player who has more than role player upside. But it's a massive question for sure. It's a massive question.
All right. Well, we got to keep it moving. I don't have much to add to that one for that reason, but he's an intriguing player. We'll see where he may end up. Could be Philadelphia. We could see how that plays out. Young player, upside, a lot of things to work on. That's
the one thing I will say
about a lot of these young players.
You brought up how you will, all of these guys that you remember who didn't improve their jumper. Jaylen Brown at California shot 29% from 3 and had way more turnovers than assists.
And listen, I was not a Jaylen Brown guy, full stop, with him coming out of Cal. I was like, this guy's just an athlete playing basketball. But credit to him. He's obviously made a ton of huge developmental leaps.
Jaylen Brown had every red flag for me that of players I didn't like. And it was 105 turnovers to 68 assists. That's awful. And a lot of times I like to go to like assist to turnover or shot creation upside as a projector, because it just shows how well you process the game. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Brown had every red flag. So every now and then I just look at the tools, look at the willingness, look at the give a shit. At 16, it's a different calculus for me than like 7. So I would take that swing.
Well, with the NBA draft coming up, a lot of these young players are going to run into some money that maybe they've never really had to deal with and try to figure out how to manage their funds.
You have an idea of where that money could go?
I think it can go to one spot, and that is the TrueMark Financial Credit Union. They'll take care of you when you join a credit union like TrueMark Financial. You become part owner, which means profits come back to you instead of going to the shareholders. So these young players want to do that and make sure that that comes to them. They don't have to really worry all that much. It's secure, better rates, lower fees as well, better return on savings, and more flexible options with all the same digital tools and tech to make everyone's lives much, much easier. Local roots right here for TrueMark, headquartered in Fort Washington with 24 branches in the Philadelphia area, including, as I was out and about on Saturday, and running across the one I always bring up, Upper Darby. They're going to love that I keep bringing up Upper Darby. There's a lot of stuff going through there. And that Upper Darby Credit Union, they serve the community and the people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits of being a customer at a bank. It's a total no-brainer. So if you're looking for that new spot for yourself or your family, head over to TrueMark.com/PHLY to learn more, or to find a branch near you. That's TrueMark.com/PHLY, federally insured by the NCUA. Also, want to tell you about Bet Parks Casino, because with the basketball done, right now, you do have a lot of baseball going on. Let me flip the hat around because these guys are still good. We talked about the big fella leading off, hitting home runs. This squad, if you want to go there to the casino and watch a game, maybe there, you can do so on their 150-foot video wall plus the ultra cool X Lounge at Parks Casino. They also have 15 live game tables, right? Table games, beautiful poker room, 3,200 state-of-the-art slots. They also have on August 23rd, pretty good show upcoming. That is the Marshall Tucker Band, Australian Pink Floyd on September 7th. Snooki, yes, the podcast with Joey, the It's Happening podcast. That's on June 28th, so that's next week. Make sure if you do want to hang out, get some pretty good food. Dining options are amazing at the Parks Casino collection of award-winning restaurants. Visit parkscasino.com. That's Parks Casino. This is how you win. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And as we discuss this upcoming NBA draft that's on the 26th, we're going to be out and about on that Wednesday for round one. Baby. 2 rounds, 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. But for Wednesday, first round, we're going to be out and about at Garage Fishtown, June 26th, 8 p.m. for the live draft show presented, as this show has been, by our good friends, presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Also, Coors Light as well. So we've got you covered. Rich will be with us. We'll be hanging out there as we get ready to talk a lot about what's going on with the Philadelphia 76ers on that particular night. So we hope that you're all able to come and hang out with us. Some Sixers memorabilia, some PHLY apparel. You have an option to sign up for some things and maybe win. But you have to sign up, be there to sign up, and hang out with us to win some cool prizes while we're there. Talk about the draft before we get started at 7:30. We can all just get together, have a few conversations about what you guys think. Maybe a trade happens on draft night. They typically happen quite a bit on draft night, so maybe we'll get some fireworks there as well. But we want to see you there. Don't forget to RSVP, allphly.com, and that's under the events tab. And as you do so, we'll see you next Wednesday beginning at 8 p.m. live here. If you can't make it out, right here on our normal feed.
It is
on
wild.
YouTube.
It's only 8 days away. Like, it feels like that snuck up on you.
It did. It really did. And they left early in the first round. Yeah. We got knocked out early, and we're still sitting here at the spot. So we hope to see you all there. We appreciate the support as always. Come and hang out. You're not doing anything on that Wednesday night anyway, right? Your basketball team is drafting. They haven't done that in a while. Come on out. Hang out with us. Garage Fishtown, June 26th. We hope to see you there.
And look, they're either making a selection or they're making a trade. There will be something to talk about.
Something will happen that night. Something. All right, let's get to another name because we have some other things that we want to discuss as well. And I'm going to throw, let me see. We only have a few left. So let's go Terrence Shannon Jr. To talk about Shannon Jr., Kyle.
Let's go to you. I think it's your guy.
And discuss this. There's a lot going on with Terrence Shannon Jr.
Well, I think the first thing we have to bring up is that part of the doubt about him throughout this season was he was involved in a court case. He was just found not guilty of felony rape and aggravated sexual assault. And I know we had that big show on Miles Bridges recently. So that was any like domestic violence, sexual assault. Those things are things we take very seriously. The only thing I will note here is I do think it's a big fundamental difference that Miles Bridges pled no contest. This was something that Terrence Shannon denied throughout the process. And there were motions made, I think, in the last few weeks leading into that not guilty verdict to introduce video evidence to clear Shannon on top of character witnesses who were involved. I can't speak to all the particulars of this case, but it does seem, based on what I have read, based on the court documents that are out there, based on the reporting, that this could very well have been a case of mistaken identity, some sort of issue that happened there. I can't tell you. The NBA teams have much better background than I do on all that stuff, but that's important context for us to bring up on this show. If we're just focusing on the player, and I don't think that's the only thing to consider here, you obviously have to do all your background checks and what have you, but I do think he probably has the most complete package of all of these guys. He is old. He was a fifth-year senior. Yep. He's at his second school. He played at, was it Texas Tech, and then played the last 2 years at Illinois. I don't know. I don't love him as an isolation attacker, but I think he is a better off the dribble guy than most of these guys. He did a lot of self-creating relative to these other guys who some of them are just pure 3-and-D or get off of the ball type of players. Shown the ability to get the rim, good finisher at the rim, not a great finisher, but a good finisher at the rim. Great straight line attacker. I think if his shot is on and he's a streaky shooter, he's going to be able to use that to set up the straight line drives. And I have gotten to a point where I do value high-end three-point shooting. Like if every guy on the floor can shoot 40 to 42% from three, that's obviously the ideal for any player. But I also think the ability to give it to a third guy who, hey, I can go create for myself in a pinch. I can go get a shot. We saw that in guard-size players. Once you get up to, I think Shannon's in like the 6'5", 6'6" range in shoes, then that intrigues me even more. I think he's like a true shooting guard, 2-3 type, and that's good. I'm a little bit worried about the inconsistency as a shooter.
Yeah.
He only really the last couple of years came on there. This is a concern that I heard from people that I trust less than I saw it on tape. But there was a belief that as he scaled up in responsibility, his defense plunged. Now, what I would say to that as a counter is to say, okay, well, he's not going to be asked to be the number one option here the way he would have for long parts of the last couple seasons in college. And he can get back to, I think at Texas Tech, he had a pretty strong defensive reputation. That was more of his draft case to become a, first round or top of the second round type pick. So maybe you end up splitting the baby and you get the worst of all worlds where he's not good enough offensively, not consistent enough defensively. But I think he represents something like a do-it-all guy there. I don't think he's a crazy bet at 16.
Yeah, I'm not in love with really any aspect of his game. Like if you go back to his time at Texas Tech, he was not a good creator. He wasn't the sort of the straight line drive attacking kind of guy he eventually became.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when you see upperclassmen all of a sudden, whoa, I can get to the line 7-8 times per game. All of a sudden I can get to the rim at will. It doesn't always translate, and I worry about that. And the shot, like you mentioned, he would go from shooting, where do I have it? 35% to 38% to 32% to 36%. It's never been consistent year over year, and I worry about that. Again, at 23, I think he's almost 24 at this point.
Yeah, he's an old prospect.
I would expect him to be a more consistent shooter if he was ever going to get there. I like the volume. Volume went up. I like that. But the consistency has never really been there, even though the free throw, he's been a good free throw shooter for his career, so you expected it to eventually translate. It's still a little inconsistent for me. And the defense has, I don't think he's made the most of his physical tools over the last 2 years. You do expect that a little bit when you become a one option like he has, but you worry whether or not he can then go back into being that role player and buying in. I like, or at least I can convince myself that I like a lot of aspects of his game, but I don't really love any of them, and I'm not really sure how it's going to translate.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with him back in the mix after everything taken care of on the legal side. That he is certainly in the mix for.
And that's a concern too. Like you've got to do your background due diligence on that. And like Kyle said, teams have way more information than we do, so it's hard for us to comment on that, but you have to look into that.
All right, let's go to another one and go to Jacoby Walter. That is a Baylor product here that, as we talked about him, and everybody has their favorite. Probably my favorite. Just the ability to do so many different things. I like the shooting, I like the ball handling that he does possess. Decent size for him, playing the big program like that. And freshman, of course, young player, but most of them are. We mentioned a couple of the upperclassmen that we do have here at 6'4". And, okay with certain things as far. He doesn't just like pop off when we talk about the measurements. And you guys mentioned in shoes and the out of shoes part. Not the biggest guy, but 6'4", decent size there for a young player. Yeah. Can he come in?
We almost threw him in with the guards because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But 6'4" with a 6'10" wingspan, which does help.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes.
Da Silva is 6'8" with a 6'10" wingspan. They have pretty much the same wingspan.
Yeah.
So he does, I think, well, not now because he's pretty thin, but he has a chance to defend bigger than his position if he can add bulk.
Yeah, add bulk, fill out to that body frame and see what he can do there. So I just like the fact that with this young player, that they're, as Kyle was talking about earlier, you look at players and you say, okay, this guy can do this. He can get better potentially at this on the next level when he gets there. And I look at him and I wonder if that is in fact the case for him. We continue to talk about the backcourt depth, which we almost put him in the category as the guards Kyle mentioned yesterday, but we put him in that wings because coming into this situation, that would not be much of his responsibility. It'd be more of the other stuff and the scoring ability. The closeouts, can he put the ball on the floor, get to the rim and finish? Can he shoot? He has a pretty good looking shot there for me that I think, again, with the work that he would get on the NBA level, with the player development, where we're looking at a guy coming from a program like Baylor and now being in the NBA situation. And a lot of times when we do speak about, while it's around the clock, 24/7 for these players, sometimes, when you're in school, some of that stuff falls back. And when you get to the pros, it's your job now. It's the only thing you're doing. To me, seems like one that can work on and continue to improve as a player at that wing position to be a decent rotational player for a team. Now, can he do so on a contending team, a playoff team like the 76ers? That's the question, but I do like the player.
I want Derek to tell us why he doesn't like him. He's so disappointed that he's got to be like the dad over there. Like, all right, son.
I like the 3-point shooting. And I like the volume. I like the diversity. Like, he can come off the screen. He can come off a dribble handoff. He can obviously shoot off the catch.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
That's
like,
what
I
you
don't
like.
think I don't think his handles are great. Like, it's good enough to get him a shot off the dribble, but it's not good enough to get all the way to the rim. I don't think he has a ton of vertical pop near the rim, so I think he's going to struggle. Honestly, I think there's a chance he might just get swallowed up by NBA defenders.
That's possible.
You mean at the rim?
Inside the arc.
Okay.
Pretty much anywhere inside the arc. And I think his shot selection off the dribble is questionable. But then again, that's 18-19 at Baylor. Like, that could change. That's certainly something. He has good length, but not great length defensively. I think he has good effort, but I don't think he's ever going to be I think he's going to be limited defensively because of his size. Honestly, outside of the shooting, I don't like a whole lot.
Yeah, I just like the shot making versatility.
Yes, that I agree with 100%.
The difference between him and Da Silva, and Da Silva was just by the numbers was a better shooter, but Jacoby's splits or his shot attempts were a lot more varied, right? He's coming off real movement, like something that I saw going over the tape I did. He was the guy they look to on a lot of baseline out of bounds plays where they're setting multiple screens from him and he's coming off hitting shots in the corner, even shots above the break. Like, they're looking for him on those plays, and those are like dead sprint plays coming off of pin downs and curls and things like that. And that separates him as a shooter from these other guys, which who I think are pure relocation or spot up.
And that's the thing. If that translates, then you can live with a lot of flaws.
Yes.
Like, we saw that with Seth Curry. We even saw that with JJ Redick. Like, you don't have to be a perfect or a complete player to have value as an off ball. I mean, there's a lot.
Right. So if he can
bring up a name that is, I think, hurts a lot of Sixers fans. We never got a chance here, but I held myself back. I'm showing restraint.
So if he brings up if his shot diet is more of that and he can connect on those in the, let's say high 30s, low 40s, great, but high 30s on those shots. Those types of players draw so much attention with the movement that if teams close out on you, then you only have to be a straight line driver. It's just a blow by, I get to the rim, score. And I think he's got enough to do that. But to Derek's point, I do think it is wholly reliant on how good is this guy as a shooter and how much attention can he draw. Because he didn't really get used this way, but he just wasn't a playmaker at all. Like, his assistant turnover ratio is like 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So he's just, and low volume on that front as well. So maybe that's a thing where if he gets more opportunities and he can become a little bit more of a secondary playmaker. But I look at him as like, he is a shooting guard as a shooting guard gets. We throw him in the wing category because I don't think he's an initiator.
And because we didn't have very many wings to talk about.
Yeah, and there just aren't that many wings. And I do think, I would say the other thing too, I'm a little bit worried. I guess I agree with Derek on this. I'm a little bit worried defensively because I'm not sure he's quick enough to get side to side with the smaller guys.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's strong enough to guard the bigger wings, and he might end up in this just purgatory where his best matchup is not any matchup. Will he be an okay switch defender? Maybe, but that's always a concern with a guy who's got length but is skinny and needs to add on weight, it could take him, a few years to be at the level he needs to be.
Yeah, and I guess it's a little hypocritical because I was a pretty big Isaiah Joe booster. I said I wasn't going to bring up his name, but here I am doing it. So I think I've just fundamentally believed in Isaiah Joe's shot a little bit more. And
I mean, those mechanics were pristine. So
perfect. Yeah, but Kyle brings it up and he's right. Like, he is a pretty good, like, his shot diversity is pretty good. And it should be enough to maybe give me more confidence than I do. I'm honestly not 100% sure why I'm not in on him. Maybe it was that he was just trying to create a little more than he will. And because of that, he looked out of place at times more than he should. Not necessarily create for his teammates, but create off the bounce.
I do think from what I heard, he's got a pretty large range. Like, I've heard anywhere from he could go like 11 or 12 to he might last until the end of the first round. So I think that's a lot of people are feeling that way. So I don't think you're alone on that one. And I frankly, I don't feel particularly confident about any of these guys. It's kind of the bottom line takeaway for me.
No, like I said, I like the shot diversity, and I like that he competes defensively, which I do think he does. Like, most of my concerns defensively will come down to size and just mediocre physical tools, but he does compete. And like I said, he does have some decent wingspan. It's just I have to buy that shot at an Isaiah Joe level, and it's tough for me to get there.
You're trying to convince him to Isaiah Joe, though. That's like you guys said. That was perfect. It's a little unfair.
I don't want him on ball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the shooting though, Isaiah Joe is Isaiah Joe as far as the shooting goes. Can he get that? I don't know, but I like him. I like him a little bit more than these guys do. They laid out the things that they do like, but I like him a little bit more. And if I'm not going to sit there and say we're doing a show next week at the Garage Fishtown, then I'm going to be jumping for joy if they select him. But of the choices that we do have here, I do like Walter.
I think he'd be a decent pick.
Yeah, I think he'll be a nice pick if it's someone that they decided to go with.
It's an archetype that when it works out, I love. It's just it's a high bar for me to get to.
I think if he hits his high end outcome, he could be like a KCP type player. I don't think that'd be a very high end outcome for him. But that'd be a great player to have on this team.
Yeah.
Like someone who doesn't need the ball to be their best self on offense. Someone who competes on defense, who's got decent length, is maybe not going to be a true ball stopper, which I do think that's where KCP over the years has become much better. He's gotten stronger and has been a better one-on-one guy. I think earlier in his career, it was more of he's a good team defender, can, create turnovers, things like that. But now he does both. But I don't think it would be crazy if he got to that level. I don't expect him to, but that would be the bet. Like, if you're going to draft him, I think you're hoping that he becomes that type of player.
And as we said with most of these guys, everybody has the flaws, and we're just picking the one that we may like the best of these guys with the flaws. Decent names that we've all brought up. Some other ones that we'll probably talk about at a different time because their range is a little bit past where the Sixers are picking at pick number 16. But we do have to get to a few other things here while we're.
If we don't talk about OG, Winona's going to have a protest, so we have to.
And also, there are a couple guys like Cody Williams, for example, is someone I'd be interested in, but he seems like he's not going to be on the board.
And his range is crazy. It used to be like 11, 12. Now I saw him at 6.
Yeah, we're seeing like top 5 potentially.
That's crazy.
Nice having a brother. I was going to say, if he was in the Sixers range, it really would be classic Sixers to draft the worst brother, right? To take it's Jaylen Williams' brother. He used to be really good. And nope. You got the Jalen McDaniels of the family.
Well, heck, they're also talking about how you might be on the same team as his brother. How crazy would that be?
That would be really cool.
That would be pretty interesting. All right, let's get to the Winona point of the OG Anunoby stuff because now that the finals is complete, the season is over, the 23-24 campaign is in the books. Teams are allowed to speak to their own free agents. And OG Anunoby, right now, the report is that he is not thrilled at the moment, not happy with the discussions with the Knicks, so he wants to explore free agency. There are a few other names, Pascal Siakam. We've talked about both of them when they left Toronto. Most likely staying. That seems to be the case with Pascal Siakam. But as Winona pointed out with OG Anunoby, Derek, it looks like, as we talked about a few weeks ago on the show, that he's not all that thrilled with the discussions and what the Knicks may be throwing his way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems clear. And we did a show on him, and then like the next day there was a report that came out. indicating that he was not unhappy, but what was it? The Bagley report. What did it say exactly? It was basically be prepared if he gets an offer of $35 million or more per year, something like that. There was basically a report indicating that maybe things weren't completely rosy and locked down the way that we assumed it was, because again, Anunoby's agent is Leon Rose's son, so everyone kind of thought it's really is. It's going to be wild if it doesn't work out.
We can even be at this point,
but. So yeah, we did a long show on him not too long ago, and I don't think my thoughts necessarily change. But if you can get him at 35 to 40, I think it's pretty easy. I would be on board with that.
What does that leave you with? After
by the way, so did you
40?
see the thing on Get Up yesterday? The Jay Williams, who's repped by CAA, was like, I'm just making sure because I didn't see anybody mention it, and I just happened to like stumble upon it I was in a YouTube wormhole.
He also said something silly today about the JJ Redick stuff, where he said, basically JJ Redick, good luck to JJ Redick. It's like, dude, you're just gonna say it right there. I'm not a fan, but it is what it is. But what are they left over with? 35, 40 potentially there.
At 40, they would have like 24 to work with. Fits. I think he'd probably fit like Markkanen in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay? If you want to have your dream off season, not that he's available, don't read anything into that.
You would do that over Paul George.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the defensive upside with him is enough that, like, because of my concerns with PG as a on-ball creative guy at this point, or a self-creator.
If PG was still PG, then it would be PG, but he's not.
Paul George 3 years ago.
Right.
Easy, Paul George. Paul George right now, I think I probably lean OG.
That being said, it's probably going to take a max to get him, and that's where I start to get waver a little bit.
And the age.
Yeah, I mean, but normally you bet on age, and you're like, oh, it's because the guy will be healthier. OG is not a guy that you can confidently say, yeah, he's going to be healthy. It's more so he's younger, he's still a legitimate elite, and I think one of the few 5-position defenders. One of the only guys in the league who can actually make that claim. Like, I hate hearing, well, you can defend 1 through 5. There are like 2 or 3 guys in the entire league who can actually do that. And he is actually one of them. So the versatility there is outstanding. And he does enough offensively. And in theory, at a $40 million number, he saves you just enough that you might be able to get a better enough 4th guy that makes a meaningful difference. And that is really important for me.
Yeah. 35 is completely different. Like, the difference between him at 35 and Paul George at 49, completely different from what you can do from what you can do with your next move. Even at 40 is significantly different.
Yes.
With what you can do.
And we're hearing it enough where you feel confident that something's up there in New York.
I mean, you feel confident that they are hesitating giving him the offer he thought he had in the bag.
Okay.
Now, whether or not
I'm expecting to wake up one day and Paul George is signed with the Clippers and Anunoby has signed an extension with the Knicks. But
staying on the topic, UK Birds fan 01 in Super Chat says, sorry for the off-topic question. It wasn't. We saved it because we knew we were talking about it now. But do you guys think it's a real possibility for us to get him? Thank you, UK Birds fan 01. I hope the guys answered your question on that particular topic. There's another one that we do have here from Holy Cannoli checking in with us. Would you give Kelly Oubre a mid-level exception? Heard a few teams want to give him this. Would you overpay because of the limited draft assets and free agent availability?
By mid-level, are we talking
about the room?
If you're talking about the room mid-level, yes. If you're talking about the normal mid-level, then I would not know.
Yeah, as much as I am on Joel's side with the, like, you want continuity and all that stuff, they haven't been good enough to be like, oh, we got to bring back the band, right? If you can upgrade on Kelly Oubre, whether that's, that could look completely different depending on what the process is like, right? If you get the 3rd star, upgrading on Kelly Oubre, it's just get a shooter, get a guy who's a good defender and also is going to shoot. Or maybe you're getting multiple $20 million players, whatever. There are ways to upgrade on Kelly Oubre. So I feel like we've said often during the offseason, I don't think any of us are opposed to bringing Kelly back. I would not go past the room. That's as much as I'd offer. If he's getting, $15 million a year. If he's getting $12 million a year, somewhere in that range. Arrivederci, Kelly. It was wonderful covering you. Fun guy to be around in the locker room, but happy trails.
Phil W says, Knicks, please sign this dude. I guess he doesn't want the Sixers to play.
Not an OG guy.
He doesn't want him to pay.
OG, for him, OG at 30 is crazy.
No bag.
But Kelly at 20 is got to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
We love you, Phil.
Have to do that one. Also, I think I saw another one saying, Javini says the Knicks won't let him walk. All right, so we'll see. Maybe they just, again, the negotiations.
That's still kind of what I expect, but I didn't expect to be sitting here, 2 weeks before
it was like
free agency.
Yeah, like it's pretty much a lock to stay in the spot that he was traded to.
Like, there's no way OG just decided he wanted close to a max contract, and there's no way that they didn't know about it beforehand.
Phil's giving me grief for saying OG $40 million. Aren't you the one who's always like, Kyle's counting other people's money?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to take to sign him, more than likely. So that's all.
Look, I'd love him at $20 million, but that's not realistic.
Yeah. Hey, OG, would you sign for the minimum?
Yeah.
All right, one more report out there. The Kings, we talked about Zach LaVine and Caruso in a package. That's what makes the guys here feel a little more comfortable. If Caruso was in the deal with LaVine, the Kings reportedly talking to the Bulls about that one. Again, one we've talked about. It's probably going to involve like Harrison Barnes and some stuff coming from Sacramento. But again, if that's out there, if you believe that to be true, would you make the phone call for Daryl, if you're Daryl Morey, just to kind of, hey, what's going on over there in the event that these other things don't work out?
Yeah, I'd be more. Now, listen, I would see exactly what the cost is, right, on LaVine. Like, if you're on the phone, you might as well, hey, let's have some conversations about your roster and what you're doing. My suspicion is still that unless they are being actively incentivized to take LaVine's contract, I think that's like a complete last resort type scenario. Well, I don't want to say last resort. I don't think it's high on the list of potential options, I would say. Caruso, on the other hand, I've said it many times. Tried to get him, talked about him prior to the deadline. Couldn't get him, as well as the Golden State Warriors, who made offers for him that they were setting a really high price. Will Chicago, after all these years of mismanagement and ownership intervention, finally see the light and say, hey, maybe we should trade guys while they still have value instead of constantly playing out the string and being on this treadmill to nowhere? I don't know, but I would certainly be on the phone about Caruso. On LaVine, I don't feel real strongly about getting. Yeah, we've done. I feel like we've done a lot of LaVine shows and talk, and I just
Zach LaVine out.
He's still the same. I mean, here's the funny thing: we've done all these shows, and he didn't play a game in like that whole time.
Yeah.
He was hurt, so it's not even like, obviously once his team is eliminated, he can't play any games. But even when we're in the season, and it's like, hey, what about trading for Zach LaVine? Guy's fucking injured. He didn't play. Like, what do you? It's nothing for me to evaluate. Like, oh, he's improving this, or looks like he's locked in defensively. Like, Zach LaVine's the same guy when we talked about him as a trade target in like late December or whatever it was.
Yep.
All right. Well, that pretty much do it. The finals come to a close as the Celtics take out the Dallas Mavericks in 5. Jaylen Brown talked about his scouting a little bit earlier. The finals MVP, $300+ million that he made last summer. Things didn't look all that great at the start of the season based on how he was playing, even though they were winning games. That was a lot of money for Jaylen Brown. Reports from Woj that next up, Jayson Tatum, $300 million on his extension. The All-NBA conversations there. He's going to play on Team USA, playing for a gold medal here. Celtics in 5. We talked about that at the beginning. That look, we all thought that the Celtics would win. We wanted Dallas to win. In this one, it was basically a domination in this series.
Yeah, look, it's one of those where the team that was the best team all season, that didn't have to face basically any adversity in the Eastern Conference playoffs, was the best team in the finals and steamrolled a team that, while they were very good, they were not anybody's favorite or not a dominant team throughout the season. They only really came together down the stretch with the defensive stuff, and we saw that was kind of a temporary position for some of those guys. The effort from Luka and Kyrie throughout the finals just was not good. So, congratulations to NBA champion Jaden Springer. That's a big contribution to the ring there. No, just good for him. Got the ring. I'd say the guy I feel best for is Drew Holiday, just because not even have always liked him as a player, liked him while I was here, all that. But you always, always, always hear just the best things about him as a person. And to see him go on to win titles with multiple teams now, feel very good for him. Seems like he really embraced. To me, he's one of those players that he's what basketball is about, below the top level, the superstar level players, that you do what it takes to win. Some nights that means he's got to go out and defend the 2 to 3 best perimeter players on the other team for 40 minutes. Sometimes he's got to give you 20 to 25 points. Sometimes he's got to post up a smaller guard. I just have a ton of respect for him as a player and a person. Zero respect for that fucking thief Al Horford, but that's a story for another day.
Drew Holiday also on Team USA for the very reason that you're talking about. He just does basketball things the right way, and he helps winning. And also with that, the other part I wanted to add to that of why I'm happy for him, outside of the fact that he was here, we covered him early, he was a good guy then, still a good guy now, is that the way Milwaukee just decided that they thought that was the right thing to do, which was to get rid of Drew Holiday, who, as you mentioned, he came into a situation that they could not get over the top. He got them over the top. And while last season's playoffs wasn't all that great for him, he's still that player that does so many different things. And then when you do have the issue of your defense is so much worse without him, you move so many other key pieces of your rotation to get rid of him to add Damian Lillard. And as much as I was a Damian Lillard guy from afar, watching, enjoying his level of play, Drew Holiday to be thrown away that way. And then the Giannis part, for what we hear so many about these guys, where so many get in the way of the transactional things from the front office and making these decisions, where Giannis was the one who gave the green light, go ahead and do it. And then seemingly on his way out, just their relationship was so much different. And Drew Holiday just went about his business, did his work, helped them become the best team in the NBA, and they win another championship, where you can look at him and say he was the key piece to that as well, that final piece to the puzzle to get them over the top, however you look at it. So for as much as I hate the Boston Celtics, I hate the organization, that's what it is. I like that guy, though. And that guy came in, and it made Milwaukee weaker. And now Milwaukee has a bit of a problem themselves going forward as they try to figure out what they're doing this offseason. Yeah. So the Drew Holiday piece is a big deal. And that guy is that guy's a winner. The guy's a winner.
Fuck Boston, but unfortunately they're the most consistently well-run team in the league right now.
And we've already done we've done shows on them being well-run and all that. So yeah, you're not going to find many people who would say a bad thing about Drew Holiday. So that would save my tip of the cap, my proverbial tip of the cap for him, and absolutely nobody else. It seems
like most of them want to play with him, and Giannis played with him and still said, "Nah, I'm cool. Go get me the other guy." All right, good job, buddy. Good job. Good job, because now he has one more than you in this case. All right, yeah, you're right, Boots. That's enough Celtics talk. It was more about Drew Holiday and taking a dump on the
NBA Finals just ended. We got to talk about it.
We had to talk about them, absolutely. And then somebody said, "How did they get all this money?" Well, they know how to. You said it, well-run organization. They know how to make it work, make the right trades to make it happen. That's time for a roll call here to say goodbye to all the great people. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the big guys. We're going to talk about the big guys tomorrow? You going to say that? Talk about
I know I put on weight, but Jesus Christ, what the hell's going on? Thank you, everybody who was here today. Thank you to Lost Sleep TV, Calvin, Maine.
Don't lose sleep watching TV.
My girl, Winona.
What up, Nona?
Prophet One.
She
Phil
says
W. Kelly Oubre, super agent.
Next week, she better win something at the garage in Fishtown. Winona, don't worry. We got you covered.
We'll rig some competitions.
There you go.
No, we won't.
I will.
Rick Morris, Spo Babby, Bootzilla,
Boots,
Randy Rubart.
What up, Randy?
Spo Babby. I just love saying Spo Babby. That's a funny one.
Spo Baby.
It's 2 B's, baby.
Once.
That's all right. I had one yesterday.
2 B's, Babby.
Yeah.
The king of the caps lock, Martian Lynch 33 in the building as
It
always.
was like the Merce.
Oh my God. Shut the hell up over there, you two. Hi, Gavini. Al Mac.
What up, Al?
What is up to X-Man?
What up, X?
What's up to Haidar overseas in, I believe, Iceland, but I always forget. Maybe it's Finland. I want to say Iceland.
What up, Iceland?
You tell me, Haidar, so I
What
don't
up, Iceland?
misidentify.
I'm
my own yams now.
All right.
Rick Sachs.
Sachs, what up?
The Merce in me.
Tiramisu.
There you go. That's what. Who are our super chatters today? I know we had Devon, aka
Holy
Schoolboy
cannoli.
Beats. We did have our friend Cannoli. We also had UK Birds fan 01. The Birds fan with the hockey goaltender logo. That's how you know. That's a diehard over there for Philly sports.
Football's coming back soon.
Thank you for coming in here today and hanging out
Iceland
with us.
it is, Haidar.
There you go. We got Thaz in here, Neil Deaver. I think we're running out.
What up,
it's
Neil?
A lot of scroll. So
Good to see you, Neil.
the tough part is I want to get to everybody, but some people are just like firing away, and it's a lot of the same.
When you're out and I do it, like
You just
whenever
type
he's
the
doing an
names
ad
in.
read, I just go through it. I take people, so I have people from the start of the chat too.
So what
And-
up, Prophet One?
You better love somebody.
You better
and
love somebody. Love
Bucket
somebody.
getter
Love
215.
somebody.
I literally can't.
There are a lot of
scroll
bucket
any
getters from the
further.
215. So that's true. A lot
Yeah,
of bucket
buddy.
getters.
If you have not already and you're still here, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, I promise we will talk about some bigs that maybe we like tomorrow.
Interested in a couple of the
I
big
think
guys.
there are some bigs that we
Couple of
like.
big guys.
The centers, the front court guys are coming. We will be back at 2:30 tomorrow and the rest of the week. We will see you
And
then.
you get that bell icon.
Thank you, Bray.
We all silly like the mayor.